Welcome into SBR's Bowl Betting Preview Show, where we're going to be bringing in 8 different handicappers going over every single bowl game from a betting perspective. Let's start off with the first handicapper, Donnie Rightside. Find him on Twitter at RightSideVP. Donnie, welcome in.
Hey, happy to be here, Drew. What a great time of the season. I know you're going to give me the first 5 bowl games, which I do appreciate. Hopefully we get the people some money there and have some fun breaking it down. Thanks once again, Drew, for having me on. Let's have some fun here.
Absolutely, Donnie. Let's get right into it. 201-202, North Texas versus Troy. Looks like this game opened up Troy -7. Now down to -5.5, pretty much across the board on SBR odds. You got a total of 60. Donnie, how you looking to bet the Mean Green and the Trojans?
Yeah, man, what a great year the Mean Green had this year. I mean, when you come into betting football games and what you look for from a betting perspective on the offensive side of the ball for North Texas, you want to have that three-way motion. What I mean by that is good quarterback, Mason Fine, Guyton at wide receiver, and Jeffrey Wilson. So you have that three-headed combo, a la the Dallas Cowboys of the early 90s. But when you take a look at this football game here, they're going to miss one key cog. Wilson doesn't look like he's going to play in this football game. The one thing that North Texas should have on their tombstone so far this year, Joy, is Drew, we had to play FAU. They got bounced twice by FAU. Still ended the season relatively hot, but when you take a look at the victories, Drew, what did you really get out of it? You beat UTEP, Army, a nice win, but you gave up 49 points to a running team, and then you beat Rice 30-14 and got trounced 41-17 in the conference final. If we're looking at Troy, I think much better balance there, winning 5 straight games to end the year. If we take a look at Troy, just some statistics there. They won at LSU this year. I mean, forget about that. I mean, you're giving up 3 yards per carry in college football from a defensive perspective. They have the overall better defense. North Texas doesn't stop the run so well. I'm going to lean on Troy in this football game. You give me anything under 7, Drew, I'm going Troy here.
All right, Donnie. Hey, let's stay in the Sun Belt versus Conference USA matchup again. We got Georgia State versus Western Kentucky. WKU laying 5, 52 the total. Donnie, I'll tell you this. Both teams with negative ATS marks and both teams at the 6-win mark. Kind of an interesting handicap here with both teams kind of, I guess you could say, limping into bowl season. How are you looking to bet it?
Yeah, it's interesting. When you look at Georgia State, I like the way they played this year. Connor Manning's a good quarterback. Penny Hart's one of the best unkept secrets there in college football, wide receiver. But what's the problem, again, that we just talked about in North Texas with Jeffrey Wilson? He's banged up in this football game, questionable to play. If he doesn't play, there's no way I'm going to be able to back Georgia State. Also, if we look at coming down the stretch, they had won 3 straight football games, lost to Appalachian State in the second to last game, 31-10, and a really bad, banged-up Idaho team, 24-10. If you flip it over and take a look at Western Kentucky, albeit they didn't have the greatest season, but to me, Drew, much more talented of a football team. If we're looking at them heading down the stretch, who they played, who they beat, and who they lost to, it's no shame losing to Florida Atlantic. Played them well, 42-28. We take a look at Vanderbilt, an SEC football team. They go down there. They play at Marshall and lose that football game, 30-23, still keeping within a touchdown. Middle Tennessee State beat them, and that's with stock still back at 41-38, and then losing to FIU in the last game of the season. I think Western Kentucky overall, Drew, the more talented football team. I'll lean on them in this one as well. You're also getting a bonus. If Hart doesn't play for Georgia State, that's going to be a tough one for them. Give me Western Kentucky in this one, Drew.
Yeah, great breakdown, Donnie. I agree with you. It's tough to find a weaker resume out of bowl games, out of bowl teams than the Georgia State Panthers. So I'm with you. I'm on WKU in this game too. 205-206, we got Oregon, Boise State. Looks like Oregon laying 7.5 pretty much across the board. The Greeks showing an 8, 59.5 the total. How you looking to bet this Mountain West versus Pac-12 matchup, Donnie?
One of the first interesting ones we're going to bring up, Drew, is when you're trying to bet the Oregon Ducks in the situation, what do you look at when you're heading in the bowl season? Motivation. Right now, their coach is playing that song and dance with Florida State as we speak. Will I be there? Will I not be there? Not a great Oregon team, 7-5 overall, but they did have 2 nice victories to end of the season, getting a little bit healthier at the quarterback position, putting away Arizona 48-28, and then you see Oregon State 69-10. But Boise State also no slouch. Just taking a look at the numbers, winning 8 of 9 overall to end the season. Mountain West title, the one key ingredient here also that you want to take about, you look at Oregon, maybe they're losing their head coach, but you make sure Madison's going to be their running back for Boise State. If he is healthy and playing the running back for Boise State, and let's just say Taggart runs away from this one, give me the over touchdown, because if we're looking right now, Drew, even though the line opened up 5, 6, 7, depending where you're shopping, looks like you can get 8 or 7.5. It's over a touchdown, and my running back's going to be healthy for Boise, Drew. Give me Boise in this one.
All right, Donnie, on to Marshall, Colorado State. Looks like 58 the total. Colorado State laying 5.5. Donnie, we got an 8-4 ATS Marshall team going up against the Colorado State team that's sitting pretty much the reverse at 4-8 ATS. You factor in that in? How you looking to bet this one?
Absolutely, Drew. I mean, coming into the season, Colorado State, to me, kind of a disappointment the way it ended up. Really talented at quarterback, running back, and wide receiver, especially with Gallup, who is a sensational wide receiver. But heading into this one, let's take a look at Marshall and what they've done throughout the season, playing really good in staunch defense, heading down the stretch. They did lose 4 or 5 to end the season, but you have to take a look into who they lost and who they lost to. You lose to Florida International 41-30. You go against FAU 30 to 25 in the rainstorm down there. Western Kentucky, you end up beating them, 30 to 23. And then you lose 2 tough ones, 9-7 at UTSA, who was fighting for bowl eligibility in that game. And the final game, Southern Miss, who is a good football club, 28 to 27. Colorado State, are they going to be happy to be in this bowl game? Were they anticipating being in a lower level bowl? Probably not, entering the year and heading down the stretch, losing the Air Force, losing to Wyoming, losing to Boise State. You pick up a win against San Jose State to end the season, but who doesn't pick up a win against San Jose State to end the season? If I'm looking at this football game, I'm going to get a little bit sneaky here. Give me the Marshall squad in this one. Thundering Herd all the way from me here, Drew.
Donnie, last game on the slate for us. We got MTSU versus Arkansas State, another Conference USA versus Sunbelt matchup. 62.5 the total. Looks like Arkansas State laying 3.5. How you looking to bet the nightcap of the first Saturday of bowl season?
Yeah, it looks a little bit short the line to me there with Arkansas State, but if we take a look at Middle Tennessee State over the season, what have they been missing most of the year? Stockstill quarterback, he's finally back and playing well. After the loss that they had to Marshall 38-10, he reappears a 30-3 win, albeit it's against UTEP, but also Charlotte. They put up 35 points and a 14-point win on the road. The Western Kentucky game shootout there, 41-38, hung with them. Old Dominion blew them away. Old Dominion suspended their quarterback for a good portion of that football game. They win easily 41-10. Looking at Arkansas State, to me, they have what it takes. Hanson at quarterback, Wand at running back. You have 3 wide receivers that average 14 yards or more. If we take a look at them heading down the stretch also, that little blip on the radar, the at South Alabama game, 24-19, was kind of an anomaly. Put away Texas State 30-12, hung 67 points on Louisiana Monroe, and a tough dogfight there last game with Troy, who's a really good football team. I'm going to lean on Arkansas State, Drew, because even though I do like Middle Tennessee State, the defense has played better. Stockstill is back at quarterback. I think Arkansas State is a little bit more in the tank for this football game. If it's 3.5, 4 at that range, I'm going to lean on Arkansas State in this one, Drew.
Great breakdown, Donnie. We really appreciate it. Give him a follow on Twitter at RightSideVP, and we'll be back with the next slate of bowl games after this short break. We are back with our next slate of bowl games from Tuesday, December 19th till Friday, December 22nd. Joining me from the other side of the SBR offices, the man, the myth, the legend himself. Follow him on Twitter at Loshak. Pete Loshak, welcome in, buddy.
Oh, thank you so much, Drew Martin. Bowl season, baby. I love it.
It's a great time of year. We got some good ones for you. Starting off in South Florida, Tuesday, December 19th, 2-1-1-2-1-2, Akron versus FAU. This one opened up 17.5. The Owls were laying, now bought up to as high as 22.5 right now on SBR odds, Pete. 61.5 the total. How you looking to bet this matchup?
Well, this one reminds me a little bit of the MAC title game, of course, where the Sharps took the over. I like the over as well, and Akron did get blown out, but they were such a big underdog that they did actually cover. FAU obviously has been awesome this year. They had a great record ATS on the year overall, but so did Akron. So, with this line getting bet up so high, minus 22.5 or 21.5, whatever it is right now, I guess, I don't want to bet against FAU, that's for sure. But I think I'm kind of liking the over here. Akron was a big undertrender on the year, as we know, but in their last few games, they really picked it up offensively. They became a lot more competent offensively, and 2 of their last 3 games went over, I believe. And actually, during the season, I was on a few of those games officially in the SBR videos here, and I think we're probably roughly going to see more of the same here against FAU. And of course, FAU has an unstoppable offense, and we know that Lane Kiffin's probably going to want to run up the score here at least a little bit. So the total's kind of high, but not super high, and Akron's games at the end of the year certainly were able to eclipse this number. So the spread is going to be a pass for me, but I'm definitely liking the over 61.5 at least a little bit. Even though Akron does have a capable defense, I don't think they're going to have much success here against FAU, and I'm not sure their defense is going to be that motivated to have a big, strong, stout defensive game either. So I like the over, Drew Martin.
All right, Pete liking the over. And I'll tell you, Pete, interesting, FAU did go 10-3 straight up, but I don't think a lot of people recognize that Akron actually matched them. Identical ATS records, both going 9-4, to your point earlier in the video. Hey, Pete, on to Wednesday, December 20th. We got the the DXL Frisco Bowl, 213, 214. We got Louisiana Tech versus SMU. This one's totaled at 70, so expecting some points here in the Frisco Bowl. Looks like SMU laying 5. SMU really started off this season hot, Pete, but down the stretch, they're kind of limping into bowl season, just going 1-6 ATS their last 7 games of the season. You factoring that in, and how you looking to bet this Louisiana Tech SMU matchup, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, I factor that in a little bit just because it indicates that at the end of the year, SMU was probably, not definitely, but probably a little bit systematically overvalued by the market. And the other issue, well, there's 2 issues here. First of all, SMU's coach, excuse me, who's their main offensive mind, is leaving the program, and he's not going to be coaching them in this game. And that's got to be a bit of a downer for the SMU players. Also, this is being played close to the SMU campus, so that's kind of good for the SMU fans. But for the SMU players, I think it's a little bit of a disappointment. The word is that, they're hoping for a little bit of a quote unquote cooler destination for this one. So, SMU has a great passing game, and not sure if Louisiana Tech, in all things being equal, would be expected to be able to keep up. But in this spot with the SMU coach gone and maybe the SMU players a little bit disappointed because of that and because of the location being so close to home, I didn't make a bet on this one. I would be leaning Louisiana Tech here plus the points. Obviously, it hasn't been a great year for Louisiana Tech compared to some of their previous years where they were awesome and a great bet. But I feel like there's a lot of very, very small, factors that are sort of pointing in Louisiana Tech's favor here. SMU, a great passing game, could easily run away with this one or just win it by a touchdown and cover. I didn't make a bet on this one yet, but as of right now, my tentative lean is to Louisiana Tech plus 5, and I'll look into this game a little bit more closer to kickoff to see what the line movement is and what other factors come to light at that point.
Hey, Pete, on to probably my favorite name for a bowl game this season. Thursday, December 21st, the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl in the Tampa area there. We got 215, 216, Temple versus FIU. Looks like Temple's laying 7. This is one you might want to shop around at on SBR odds right now. 5 dimes is laying 7.5. So if you're looking to bet FIU, 5 dimes would be the place. Looks like 56 the total. How you looking to bet the Owls and the Panthers, Pete?
Well, this one is interesting. Both these teams finished off the season on excellent ATS runs, and both teams also ended the season on strong overruns. Now, it can be a little bit of a trap to look at how teams ended the season and then expect those trends to continue into their bowl game. But I'm thinking about taking a play with the over here. Obviously, Temple had a very conservative offense to start the year and in years past, but after week 4, they switched things up offensively, and that really ignited the offense. And then, of course, the new quarterback who came in did a great job in that system, and so it's not a coincidence that they went on a big overrun and also a big ATS run to close out the year. And FIU as well. FIU, I love the over in the FIU's last game against UMass, and I gave that as an official pick on the Saturday morning show that I was doing with Big Man on Campus. And so, even though it can be a little bit of a tricky situation, sometimes a trap to expect trends that were displaying themselves at the end of the year to continue into the bowl game, I'm thinking about a play with the over here, and I actually like it, and I did bet it, and I think it's a solid play. This one also is a little bit split market wide. It's 55.5 or 56. And as far as a spread, as of right now, I have no opinion just because my play on the over is likely to be much stronger than any opinion I might ever have on the side here. So I'm liking the over here, Drew Martin.
All right, Pete. Well, we got 2 games to close it out on Friday, December 22nd to close out our little segment here. Going to the Bahamas Bowl down in Nassau, we got UAB versus Ohio. Looks like 57 the total. Ohio, the Bobcats laying 7.5. Pete, it's a cool destination, but getting the whole teams there, the passport issues and everything, you think that factors in, and how you looking to bet the Blazers and Bobcats?
I mean, definitely in general, these kinds of locations are a factor, can be a factor at times. They're definitely not a factor in every situation, but at times they certainly can be. This is a tough one because Ohio in general is a program that I like to bet on, especially in bowl games, especially as an underdog. Solich is a great coach, gets a lot out of his team and prepares them well. And Ohio has had a great ATS record in their bowl games recently under Solich, except they were always an underdog in all of those bowls. This is the first time Ohio's going to be a favorite. And of course, they're not just a small favorite. They're actually a favorite of 7 or 7.5. And actually, I'm not seeing any 7s anymore. I'm just seeing 7.5. UAB, of course, though, a great story. They were, they were out of football for a couple of years. Now they came back and far exceeded expectations. So they're playing with a good mindset coming into this bowl, and of course playing very pressure-free, which is an important factor, in my opinion, in bowl games. Teams that come in, in a good positive mindset and playing pressure-free are teams that I don't like to bet against, especially when they're an underdog here. But on the other side, Ohio's not a team I like to bet against in bowl games either. A solid max squad again. So as of right now, sorry to say that I have no play on this one. I'll look into it more. Again, the total looks about dead on to me. It should wind up around 56. There might be a small edge one way or the other. Nothing really clear that I'm seeing on the total. And as far as the spread's concerned, I don't want to bet against Ohio here, but I also don't really want to be giving UAB 7.5 points. So it's a pass for me, Drew.
All right, Pete, on to the last game for our segment. A really good name here, the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. And I'll tell you, Pete, last year, this was one of the best bowl games. The Idaho Vandals won outright as 2 touchdown underdogs to Colorado State, I believe. Well over 100 points scored in that game. But this year, 219, 220, CMU, Wyoming. Looks like the Cowboys of Wyoming laying 1. Some opinion on this total, Pete. We got a 45 hanging at Chris, 45.5 pretty much across the board, and the Greeks showing a 46. So some opinion on this total from the books. Do you have an opinion on this total, or looking at it more from a side angle?
Well, unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to give an opinion right now on this game at all, because so much is predicated on whether Wyoming's quarterback Josh Allen plays or not. For people who aren't familiar, Josh Allen, of course, is Wyoming's star quarterback. He's projected to be a first-round draft pick in the NFL. And they played pretty well with him throughout the year. Wyoming is not a good team without Allen, but despite that, with Allen in, they covered about 5 or 6 games in a row in the middle of the year. But then his last 2 games, he was injured, and they just completely fell completely off the table. And they lost their last 2 games ATS by a wide margin. And it's still uncertain whether he's going to play or not. The coach is saying that he's likely to play. Allen is saying that he wants to play, but that he's only going to play if he's 100%. So it's not that he's 100% playing or not. It's that he might play, and he will play only if he's 100%. And that's such a huge factor here for Allen. And of course, the line, I'm guessing, might take some significant movement if any surprising news comes in between now and kickoff. Central Michigan, of course, is a team that I had a lot of success with, because I was fading them early in the year when they had a ton of injuries offensively at receiver. And then they started to get healthy, and they started to become a great team to bet on and to go over. Of course, Central Michigan has a quarterback who's a transfer from Michigan who has played in a bowl game before, and he's been doing a great job for them. So I had a pretty good read on Central Michigan this year. I was fading them early in the year successfully, and then at the end of the year, I was betting on them, and more than that, betting on their overs. And they did close the year on a run of overs. So in general, Central Michigan is a team I'm pretty impressed with. I like their quarterback. He's experienced and talented, and I like what they bring to the table offensively for this game for sure. But it's just, star quarterbacks are a big deal in most situations, but for Wyoming, it's massive, because he's really all they've got. Everything else is typical Wyoming level talent for the most part. So we got to wait until kickoff to get more information on whether Allen's going to play or not, and what condition he's likely to be in.
From the other side of the SBR offices down here in Escazú, Costa Rica, he's Pete Loshak. Give him a follow on Twitter at Pete Loshak. We'll be right back after this short break. We're back with our next slate of college bowl games, and we got big man on campus with him. Find him on Twitter at Jeff Nadu. Jeff, welcome in. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, Drew. Ready to talk some bowls here. Exciting time. Plenty of money to be made. Let's jump into it.
All right, buddy. We got 12 noon Saturday, December 23rd, 221, 222 on the rotation numbers. Texas Tech versus USF. Looks like USF laying 2.5 across the board. Know what that means with no shops putting out a +3 or putting out a -3. 67 the total. Jeff, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, I generally, a lot of the time, Drew, really just look at situational spots here in bowl games. Do teams care? That sort of thing. You look at South Florida here in a bowl game. Quentin Flowers' last game at this university. He's been a mainstay for many years. And I think for me, I'm going to look that way towards the Bulls. Texas Tech, you could argue, maybe isn't even worthy of being at a bowl game. Had to get their sixth win really late in the season. And I think the common narrative this year is that Texas Tech has made some strides defensively. But, as always, I think they're pretty poor, frankly. They don't have much of a run game. And with Cliff Kingsbury at the helm, I don't think the run game's going to work. They're very one dimensional, basically just want to throw the ball. I think South Florida is the better football team here. I think overall with Flowers, I have the best player on the field. I think with him alone, we saw last week and that game against Central Florida how good he is and how good this football team is. I think they're better defensively. They're really good against the run, and I do think they can get some stops in the passing game. It's probably a closer game, probably pretty high scoring. One thing I do know we'll see, Drew, is penalties in this game. There probably will be a lot of penalties. Both these teams, 124th and 128th in the country in penalty yards per game. Both of them over 75 yards in penalties. So it could be a wild game, a lot of antics, that sort of thing. But I'm going to lean on Quentin Flowers in South Florida here. I think they're the better team. I think they get a narrow 7-point win or so and win this bowl game.
All right, big man. Hey, 223-224. We got Army, San Diego State. This one, we're filming a couple days before the Army-Navy game right now. But I want to get your opinion on this game, what maybe you think the number would be. I know San Diego State, 4 straight wins and covers. Army's also been a really good team of late. You know Army as good as anybody. You got any opinion on betting this bowl game matchup?
Yeah, I would say the number's probably, I don't know, 4 probably, for San Diego State. I think they'll be a favorite here. I equate kind of San Diego State in the same kind of pattern as I do with Navy, and we see what the line in that game is. It's about 3.5, and that's with the rivalry aspect. Army's a really good football team, and I think it's hard to think how they'll play in this game before they play in the Navy game. That game's so big, and as they kind of get some time off and are able to focus more on their opponent, I think with a win against Navy, I would definitely probably be interested in Army. But with not knowing the line, it's hard to say. One thing I do know, Drew, these teams are pretty similar. They both love to run the football with Rashad Penny and with the Army option. But again, Drew, the concern you always have at Army is if they get down in a football game, can they come back in it? They have very little passing attack. They've only thrown the ball 60 times in 11 games. I mean, that's pretty amazing. The next closest is thrown it like 100 times. So it just goes to show you how few they throw the football. If they get down in this game, which I expect they will, I think they're going to have a tough time. This game is in Texas, so it's kind of a neutral field for both teams, kind of in the middle of the country. Both these teams have to travel. But though with the San Diego State run game, with the fact that they do have a capable quarterback and with a pretty good defense, I would lean Aztecs here. But again, that line is, if it's 4 or less, I would be interested in the Aztecs. When you're getting up towards the 5, 6, 7, I'd probably lean towards the underdog here.
And big man, let's just say the total was in the high 40s. I mean, both of these teams are going to run it, like you said. Would you lean under if that was the number?
Yeah, I would. I think both these defenses are more than capable. One thing Jeff Monken's done at Army is they have a really good defense year after year. And San Diego State has had one as well. They did lose some production from last year, but it really hasn't mattered. You look at on the road this year in 5 games, giving up under 14 points a game. Really done a nice job. I'm not looking at betting overs in this game, put it that way.
Big man, we got 225, 226, App State versus Toledo. Sunbelt versus MAC matchup. Interesting one here. Toledo laying 8, 63 the total. How you looking to bet it?
Yeah, this is I do want to make people aware that some of these games, Drew, you asked me to cover. This is not a game I'm going to be betting. I have no real feel on it. It is a tough one. App State, though, comes into this Dollar General Bowl with some momentum. They played real well towards the end of the season, but again, that was against subpar competition. So I don't put a ton of stock. Their offense is rolling, so that's kind of one thing. And I do expect them to have some success against Toledo. Toledo's had trouble all year on the defensive end. I do imagine App State will have some success here, but I also don't think App State's seen a passing offense quite like Toledo. Logan Woodside's been fantastic all year, throwing for almost 300 yards a game. But the number's pretty high. I mean, in a bowl game, this is a bit of a coin flip. I think Toledo's, probably 5 to 6 points better, but you got to lay a full touchdown and a point here. That's a hard ask. No real opinion on this game. I actually would kind of maybe lean over. I could see App State getting into the high 20s here. I think Toledo's always good for 30-ish. I just don't know that App State's seen a defense quite like or an offense quite like Toledo's. It could be tough for them to really handle the speed and athleticism that Toledo has through the air.
Moving on to Christmas Eve, one of my favorites, December 24th, the Hawaii Bowl. Houston versus Fresno in this matchup. Looks like Houston's laying 2.5, 50 the total. How you looking to bet this Christmas Eve matchup, big man?
Yeah, this is always a really interesting handicapping situation, Drew, with the Hawaii Bowl, because it's one of those tropical atmospheres that, if you do some research, you can really find out, who's ready for these games and who isn't. I think this is a pretty good matchup for Fresno State. They have no qualms. They travel out to Hawaii every year, took care of the Rainbow Warriors this year, and are familiar with this territory. For me in this game, you usually have what's called a business trip type game where you have a team that is going in, they're ready to be there, they've been to Hawaii, they're not going to be worried about everything else going on. And I think you have a distinct advantage here if you're Fresno State, just knowing that you can go on the road in an atmosphere tropically like this and play well. They've been fantastic all year defensively. You look at against the spread, Drew, 10-2 this year for the Bulldogs, and they're 6-0 as an underdog against the spread this year. Those numbers really speak for themselves, and I'm pumped up about this Orlando Steinhauer defense. One of our colleagues, Ian Cameron, mentioned that he thought they'd be improved. He was dead on the money. I mean, you look at this schedule, Drew. Not a lot of traveling scenarios like this for Houston. I'd imagine they'll be out there pretty early, but it's not so much true of when they get there. It's about what happens during the time that they are there. We have to remember at the end of the day, these are 18, 19, 20-year-old kids from Texas, having a tough year from a standpoint of their city. You'd imagine they'd be kind of excited about going out to Hawaii. Probably none of them have ever been there. You got to worry about other things, women, beer, bad food, that kind of thing. You have to be in this business, Drew, particularly in college bowls. You have to find beat writers that are well into this program, understand what's going on, because that can tell you a lot. You might have a situation here where a coach will take the team to a luau or something like that, and right before a game. They're just things here that I like for Fresno. I think Fresno's in a better spot. They've been here before. This is a pretty strong play. I like Fresno in this game as an underdog. Don't really understand it.
Great breakdown there, Jeff. Hey, on to Tuesday, December 26th. Last one for us. The Utah Utes versus West Virginia. Looks like Utah laying 7. And an interesting move here totals-wise. This one open 54. It's as high as 58 right now at Just Bet. Looks like 5 Dimes and Chris hanging 57.5 as we're filming right now. Any opinion betting this one, big man?
Yeah, it's definitely a curious move just because there are some questions at quarterback for both teams. Huntley has been kind of in and out of the lineup all year, and Will Grier is doubtful for this game. But, Drew, when you look at it from a side perspective, I'm interested in Utah in this game just because of West Virginia's issues right now. No quarterback. If Will Grier's in this game, it's a different situation. But, I think defensively they're pretty poor. West Virginia's giving up 37 points a game on the road this year, having a lot of trouble getting stops. And, as poor as Utah's played at certain points this year, they do have a capable backup in Troy Williams. If he needs to come in, he can play. Defensively, they're pretty good. They're 36th in the country against the run. And you have to figure, you look at last week and what West Virginia did to score points. They ran the football. Utah does a great job at stopping the run. I think they're going to try to lean on that run game, but have limited success. I'm not in love with this game. It's a tough one, but I kind of like Utah here, frankly. I know it's a big number. I know it's heavy, but it is one where I'm kind of on the level of the Toledo game. Don't have a huge opinion on it, but I think West Virginia's going to have some trouble in this game. I do think it's a tough matchup, and defensively, Utah's much, much better.
Thanks for the tide, big man. Give him a follow on Twitter at Jeff Nadu. We'll be right back with the next slate of bowl games after this short break. We're back with our next handicapper going over the next 5 bowl games on the slate. Find him on Twitter at Babano, his work at sportsmemo.com. He's Ian Cameron. Ian, welcome to the show.
It's bowl season, Drew. Great time of year. Happy to break down some of these games here for SBR.
Boom. Let's get right into it. 231, 232. Northern Illinois versus Duke. It looks like Duke opened -3, Ian. Bought up to -4.5 now, pretty much across the board at SBR odds. 47.5 the total. How you looking to bet this one?
Yeah, I mean, early on, my lean is Duke. I kind of agree with the move here on the Duke side, up to 4.5 now, pretty much across the board. Look, Northern Illinois to me and the MAC as a whole this season was not a great conference by any stretch. I mean, you look at the top team, Toledo, and I think there's a big drop off from everybody else there in that MAC conference this year. It's not been a great year by any stretch of the imagination for the MAC. Northern Illinois 8-4, but they had some losses that are a little bit of a head scratcher as well. You know, they lost their finale to Central Michigan, lost that aforementioned game to Toledo. They're a decent squad, but you know, they've had a bunch of quarterback issues. I don't think this Northern Illinois defense is anything that they have been in years past. They gave up some points, especially to some of the better teams they played. You know, on the other side, you got a Duke team that can put up points. I mean, they got a solid quarterback here in Jones. I think you're going to have a motivated football team going into this game, even though it was a little bit of a down season, I guess you could say, for this Duke team. But still, they're in a bowl game. It's a thing that I think they're going to take seriously. I like David Cutcliffe. In theory, he's one of those coaches, Drew, that I like with extra time to prepare here in this game. And I just think there's a little bit of a class difference, a little bit of a speed advantage here in favor of the Duke Blue Devils. And just overall, the MAC in general is a conference that I sometimes have a hard time believing in when it comes to bowl season. And probably Northern Illinois is one of those teams that I'd have trouble backing here against this Duke squad. So right now we've seen early money come in with Duke here, Drew. And to me, it's a movement that I kind of agree with here.
We got 233, 234 on the slate next. Kansas State versus UCLA. Looks like Kansas State's laying 2.5, just there, right under a field goal. 63.5 the total. Ian, one thing I noticed with this game's both teams with negative ATS records. How do you think the market bets this one? Where do you think the line ends up before this one kicks?
Well, the biggest storyline for me coming into this game, Drew, with K-State UCLA is all the moving parts here with UCLA. We're talking about, you know, Jim Mora Jr. getting fired late in the season. They officially announced Chip Kelly as the successor, the new head coach, although he will not be coaching in this bowl game here for UCLA. That's going to be up to Jed Fish, the assistant who's taken over as the interim head coach for this bowl game. So Chip Kelly, it's going to be similar to what Jimbo Fisher's doing at Texas A&M. He's just going to be overseeing the team. He's not coaching the bowl game, even though he's been brought in as the new head coach, Chip Kelly. So, you know, it's just a matter of what kind of incentive is there going to be for UCLA. And if you're going to handicap this game, Drew, I think you got to dig into that. You got to see where the motivation is on this UCLA side, what their game plan is. Is this going to be a situation where they go full bore, put all the experienced upperclassmen in and playing this game? Or are they going to give some of those younger players a look? Or is Chip Kelly going to want to look at some of these younger players, considering these are guys that he might have on his roster next year for the next season with UCLA? So it's very important that if you're going to bet this game, you understand what UCLA is trying to accomplish, what their incentive, what their motivation is for this bowl game. Even if they are motivated, Drew, I didn't love this team this year, UCLA. They're Civ on the defensive side of the football, just brutal in terms of yards allowed, both through the air and on the ground. 6.3 yards per play allowed, 488 yards per game, 5.7 yards per carry, 282 on the ground. I mean, that could bode well against for Kansas State here in this game. They're more of a run-oriented, run-based offense. They should be able to run that ball, pound it right down UCLA's throat. But on the flip side, Josh Rosen is going to play this bowl game, Drew, and he's a quarterback that we know Kansas State against some of these potent passing attacks and some of these quarterbacks this year, they've sort of struggled a bit on the defensive end. Maybe it's a game we see points in. So I'd lean a little bit to K-State, maybe over the 63.5 points as well.
Hey, we got 235, 236, Southern Miss versus FSU. Looks like it's -15 pretty much across the board. Chris showing a 14.5, 49 the total. Ian, what you got?
Yeah, Florida State's another team. Jimbo Fisher gone. They're on a head coaching search. Rumors that Willie Taggart might be the front runner for that Florida State job. So this is one of those situations, again, you got to do your reading, got to do your due diligence here if you're going to try to get inside what Florida State's up to here for this bowl game. And I know they put it all on the line against Monroe, and they had a good finale. They got that 6th win to get bowl eligible, but you know, this is still a Florida State team that's used to playing for ACC championships, used to playing for national championships, used to playing in New Year's Six bowl games, bigger bowl games than this. And I'm just worried with teams in that kind of spot they're not exactly teams, Drew, that I'm running to the betting window looking to lay more than 2 touchdowns with, and that's the number you got to lay here with Florida State here in this game against Southern Miss. Southern Miss is still a team you've got to have some respect for. Ito Smith's a great running back. I don't think their quarterback play has been as good after their former quarterback graduated after last year. They just haven't gotten as good production in the passing game this year, Southern Miss, and their defense is a little bit susceptible, especially here against Florida State. We saw James Blackman really come on strong late in the season for this Florida State offense, played his best football down the stretch. That could be a bit of a concern for this Southern Miss defense from a strength of schedule perspective. I mean, Southern Miss did not face many quality opponents to the caliber of Florida State from a speed, from a Power 5 perspective. This could be a little bit of an eye-opener for them. Tough game, but just on a gut reaction here, Seminoles, I'd have to do some serious digging here if I'm going to come up with a reason to lay 15 with them in a minor bowl game where you're just not sure where the motivation comes in.
Ian, we got one ACC versus Big Ten. We got BC versus Iowa. It looks like 45's the total. Iowa laying 3 pretty much across the board. I'll tell you, Ian, the Boston College Eagles, one of the hottest teams in the nation, 8-3-1 ATS going into bowl season. How you looking to bet Eagles Hawkeyes?
Probably would have to lean to the Boston College side, actually, in this game. I mean, Iowa laying points is not something I ever like doing. I know it's only a field goal. They're in a close to a straight-up win equals cash a ticket type of price range here for Iowa. But, their offense is still pedestrian. There's no question. And, running the football is obviously the predominant factor for Iowa in terms of moving the ball. Nathan Stanley at the quarterback spot certainly showed you some glimpses of quality play at times, but I don't think it was overly as consistent as you'd like to see it from him. Boston College, to me, was a team that really picked up the pace a little bit offensively as the season went on, started playing with a little bit more tempo, and that's really when they started to turn their season around in terms of the offensive side of the football. They were able to move the ball and put up some points. This to me was an Iowa team that I know they have that big signature win against Ohio State, which is effectively, based on everything you've heard, the loss that kept Ohio State out of the college football playoff this year. But Iowa in this price range, laying points is just not something I ever like doing here with a Kirk Ferentz team. Boston College, obviously down the stretch, they played strong. They played some of their best football the last month to month and a half of the season. So making a case for the dog here, Boston College, makes a little bit of sense.
Ian, great stuff so far. Last one on the docket for us, 275, 276. Purdue versus Arizona. Looks like Arizona's laying 3.5, 66.5 the total. I'll tell you, 8-4 to the over for Arizona. You got any opinion on this total?
I look at the Purdue Boilermakers as one of the predominant bet-on teams going into bowl season. I mean, this is a team that you would think is happy to be at a bowl game. It's been a rough go of it for this program from a football perspective for many years now. And even though they sort of tailed off down the stretch after that red-hot September to begin the year, this is still a major, major step in the right direction for the Purdue football program in the first year under head coach Jeff Brom, who did a really good job for this team, did a great job at Western Kentucky too. So this guy can coach. I said it before at Western Kentucky, and he's brought that here to Purdue. And he's had to deal with inconsistency at the quarterback spot. David Blau's been inconsistent, then he got hurt. Elijah Sindelar is still a quarterback that's trying to grow in this Purdue offense, this pass-happy, or it's eventually going to be pass-heavy under Jeff Brom, although they did try to run the football more this season under Brom just because he said it takes time to grasp the system, grasp that passing game, and certainly we've seen that from Purdue. But I think they're excited to be here. Defensively, they could be up against it against this Arizona machine a little bit. We know Khalil Tate, what a incredible noise he made late in the season down the stretch when he took over this quarterback spot. But Arizona is still very suspect on the defensive side of the football. I give Jeff Brom time to get this offense prepared, extra practice time, ready to go for this bowl game. And as an underdog at plus 3.5 here in this game, I think Purdue is looking at this bowl game as, wow, we're fired up. We're in a bowl game. We're excited to play. We want to win this thing. I think there's a good case to be made for Purdue in that game.
He's Ian Cameron. Find him on Twitter at Babano, his work at sportsmemo.com. We'll be right back with Ed Feng after this short break. We got our next slate of college football bowl games with Ed Feng. Find him on Twitter at the Power Rank. Ed, welcome in. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Drew Martin?
Good, man. Got 5 good bowl games here. Excited to hear your opinion. 239-240, Missouri versus Texas. Looks like Missouri's laying 3, 60.5 is the total. How you looking to bet this one, Ed?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an interesting matchup. It's Tom Herman's first year. I don't think 6-6 is going to make anyone too happy down there in Austin. But the defense was fantastic this year. They ranked 10th on my adjusted yards per play. And that's going to be a great matchup with Missouri's offense. Quarterback Drew Lock had a great season, throwing the ball downfield. They're 7th in terms of my adjusted yards per play. And the other thing I'm looking for in this game, another interesting thing about Texas, they really jacked up their pace of play. They ran about 78 plays per game this year. That's right below Oklahoma State, which we know is really fast. No big position on this one, but I think it's going to be an interesting game.
All right, and under the Thursday slate, December 28th, we got 241, 242, Virginia versus Navy. No posted total or side on this, really. We are filming a couple days before the Navy-Army game. I believe I saw Pinnacle with the line Navy -3.5. Ed, is that about what you would have it? And any opinion on this total?
Yeah, I mean, my numbers have it about Navy at a half point, so pretty close 50-50 game. Bronco Mendenhall went 6-6 in his first year, and unlike Tom Herman in Texas, I think that's pretty good for this Virginia program. Navy, obviously a triple option team. They run the ball on 86% of plays. They do it with some reasonable efficiency. They're 34th in terms of my adjusted yards per carry, and they're probably going to be able to do that against Virginia. Virginia ranks 70th in rush defense, which is again that adjusted yards per play. So yeah, we'll see where this line ends up. 3.5, probably, definitely lean towards for Virginia on that, if that is what the line comes out to be.
And Ed, I mean, Virginia kind of comes in kind of limping into bowl season. They got off to that good start and then weren't really competitive too much in their last 3 games, even including Virginia Tech Hokies. Are you a little worried that down the back half of the stretch, it's a different team from the Wahoos than the first half of the season?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think you're always going to go through some growing pains with getting a new coach in and getting his system in. So, I don't make too much of that. I mean, they probably struggled because their competition was pretty good the last couple of games. And we'll see what they do against, not as tough as ACC competition in Navy.
No, good point, Ed. 243, 244. We got Virginia Tech, the team that the Wahoos played in their last game, versus Oklahoma State. The Cowboys, 62.5 the total. Looks like Oklahoma State's laying 6.5. How you looking to bet this ACC versus Big 12 bowl game, Ed?
Yeah, I mean, I think 6.5 is about right. My numbers add about 5.2 for Oklahoma State. Remember, we have this explosive Oklahoma State offense. Mason Rudolph, a lot of weapons at receiver. They ranked 4th in terms of my adjusted yards per play. And Buzz Foster's defense was good this year, but not great. They ranked 32nd in terms of my adjusted yards per play. I think that's going to be a fantastic matchup. I had Oklahoma State overrated at the beginning of the year. I thought 11th, 10th in the preseason AP poll was a little bit high, and they looked a lot better than that for a big part of the season. The defense has kind of fallen off the last 4 games. They're out of my top 25. They're at 36th in my defense rankings, which is kind of a little bit more. That's where I expected this team to land on a good year for that defense. So we'll see how that unit holds up against freshman quarterback.
And Ed, 2 really good games, Thursday, December 28th, nightcaps here, 9 p.m. Eastern kick, one on ESPN, one on FS1. We'll start off with the Alamo Bowl, 245, 246, Stanford versus TCU. I know you have a Stanford degree. Are you looking to bet them? I mean, the total is 49, TCU laying 2.5, a 10-win TCU team going against the 9-win Pac-12 team. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I definitely would lean towards Stanford. I have TCU by the numbers favored by about a point. You have to consider, I mean, Bryce Love's a huge variable. He's obviously limping around. I really don't like that David Shaw has been testing that ankle so much over the last couple of games, especially against TCU. You give this guy a couple weeks to rest, I think he is going to be a lot better. Or maybe the fact that TCU is a 2.5-point favorite reflects the fact that maybe he's going to skip the game and get ready for the combine with his injury. I don't know what the case is. The other thing to consider about this game is that Stanford started to play true freshman KJ Costello at quarterback over the last part of the season. This is a different team offensively than it was at the beginning of the year. Costello's really grown into the role. He clearly looks like a guy who can play the quarterback position at the college level. So that's definitely something to think about on both the side and the over.
And Ed, the other 9 p.m. Eastern kick, the Holiday Bowl. It's in San Diego on FS1. We got 277, 278, Michigan State versus Washington State. Two teams with identical straight up and ATS records, sitting at 9-3. Both teams at 7-5 against the number. Looks like we got a total of 45. Washington State laying 3. You looking to bet the Cougs or the Spartans in this one, Ed?
Oh, I mean, I think that line is pretty fair. I think, my numbers would put it at Washington State by 2.5 points. Michigan State is perhaps the best story in college football this year, or maybe the worst if you live in Ann Arbor like I do. This team was supposed to be terrible. This was supposed to really be their rebuilding year. They were 3-9 last year. They had so much turmoil in the offseason and lost a lot of their best offensive players. It's really been a remarkable job by Mark D'Antonio. The defense has been particularly good. They've been 18th in my defensive rankings by adjusted yards per play. Something that I still think is too high. I mean, I think they still have a lot of question marks on that defensive side of the ball. Didn't really play a ton of offenses that could throw the ball. On the other side of the ball, Washington State is a team that the offense wasn't as good this year. You look at a Mike Leach team, you look at Luke Falk, and a senior that's thrown for a ton of yards. Their efficiency actually slipped on that side of the ball. Much more than made up for it on the defensive side of the ball, where they actually ranked 14th in the nation in terms of my adjusted yards per play. So really kind of a flip-flop. I think this line is fair. Think a little bit about the total, maybe and over on the total, just because I do think that the numbers this year are I don't think both defenses are as good as their numbers suggest. So I definitely lean towards the over.
He's Ed Feng. Find his work at thepowerrank.com. He's got great analytics on how to win your bowl pool, give you a good edge. Check it out, thepowerrank.com. We'll be right back with the next bowl preview. We're back with our next slate of bowl games, bringing in Kelly Stewart. Follow her on Twitter at KellyInVegas. Kelly, welcome in. How are you?
Doing well, Drew. Just checking out some of these bowl games, ready for the bowl season to kick off. I'm going to be sad this weekend without college football.
Yeah, we got one weekend off for just Army-Navy, but we're actually going to be talking Friday, December 29th, pretty much every game on the slate for this day. Kelly's got them all. So starting off 12 noon, we got 247, 248. Texas A&M versus Wake Forest. We got SEC versus ACC here. 64.5 the total. Looks like Wake's laying 3. This is a Wake Forest team, Kelly. It's kind of been pretty surprising. 8-3-1 ATS going against Texas A&M, who a lot would think is the more talented team, but with all the coaching changes, who knows what's up there. So how are you looking to bet this first game, Kelly?
Drew, you hit the nail on the head. This Wake Forest team has been absolute money this year. Only one time did I bet against them, and that was 2 weeks ago. I took Duke plus 11.5. Other than that, they have been great against the number. And then, like you said, this Texas A&M team, Kevin Sumlin's out, Jimbo Fisher's in, but it's going to be special teams coach Jeff Banks who's going to be filling in the duties for the Belt Bowl. The Aggies just haven't fared well in bowl games with interim coaches over the past decade. Not to mention, this is basically a home game for Wake Forest, just a short trip down the road to Charlotte. All signs are begging for me to bet the Demon Deacons. So that has me looking at the Aggies a little bit harder. I think there is a chance here that they can salvage their very disappointing season, as their fan base has said. And you know what? I always joke about the SEC, but who doesn't love an SEC team getting a field goal?
Yeah, absolutely, Kelly. Good breakdown. We got another one here, 3 o'clock on CBS, 249, 250, NC State versus Arizona State. So ACC Pac-12 here. Looks like NC State's -6, 59.5 the total. How are you looking to bet this matchup?
We talk about this every week on the show. I'm always trying to make a case for the Dogs, but this Sun Devils defense is just pretty bad. They've allowed 6.3 yards per play, gave up over 30 points in 9 of their 12 games. They also are without their head coach, Todd Graham. I know they had that big win over Washington, which was great, especially, getting over 2 touchdowns at home. Either way, I'm looking at this, and it's still too many points to lay with the Wolfpack, who have not covered a game this season as a favorite. Gun to head, I'm going to bet the Sun Devils. I haven't quite decided yet, but I'm definitely not laying the 6 with NC State.
All right, and then on to a bowl game on ESPN, 251, 252, the rotation number. We got Kentucky versus Northwestern, so SEC versus Big Ten. 51 the total. Looks like Northwestern's laying 7 pretty much across the board, -7. 5 Dimes showing a 7.5. So this is one you're going to want to shop around on SBR odds here. And Kelly, I'll tell you one thing I noticed. 7 straight against the spread wins for Northwestern. You think they can continue here against the Wildcats?
You know, this is the second year the Kentucky Wildcats have been bowling, but I'm not sold on this team really being prepared. They dropped 3 of their last 4 games, got absolutely throttled by Georgia and Louisville. The Northwestern Wildcats, on the other hand, have proven themselves this year. They've covered 9 out of their 12 games. They are a physically tough Big Ten team. They're going to force turnovers here, so I got to lay the touchdown with the Northwestern Wildcats.
All right, laying the touchdown with the Big Ten Wildcats and the battle of the Wildcats in that one. We got 253, 254, Utah State versus New Mexico State. You know, New Mexico State's in their first bowl game since, I believe, the 1960s. But Utah State's laying 3.5 in this one, 61 the total. This one on CBS Sports Network. Kelly, how you looking to bet this one?
You know, Drew, you're right. New Mexico State's first bowl game in 57 years. Coincidentally, the last bowl game they went to, they played Utah State. I know Utah State has a more impressive resume here. They have that big one over in-state rival BYU, Hawaii, and New Mexico. But their momentum, the momentum seems to be here with the New Mexico State Aggies, who won 3 of their last 4 in the Sun Belt games, including a late win over South Alabama to punch their ticket to the bowl game. I'm going to take the 3.5 here with New Mexico State.
So Kelly, you're not using that last bowl matchup against Utah State into this time, 50 years later?
No, you know, 57 years really isn't something to probably take into account when you're handicapping games.
All right, I'll take that note. 255, 256. Last one for us here. The Cotton Bowl, a big one. We got the USC Trojans versus Ohio State. 64.5 is the total. Looks like Ohio State, the Buckeyes, laying 7 pretty much across the board. You can find a 6.5 at the Greek, so the Greek taking an opinion on this one. This one, 8:30 p.m. Eastern kick. The nightcap for Friday, December 29th. How you looking to bet the Cotton Bowl, Kelly?
You know, Drew, I think this game is going to be really a lot more exciting than the line indicates. The Trojans have been terrible against the number a majority of this season, which is why I've been betting against them, especially on your show so much. But I think that they can keep it close here and maybe even get a win over the Buckeyes. I think the big problem with USC this year was the hype surrounding them to start the season. When you have such high expectations, they can hardly ever be lived up to. Now you have this Buckeyes team who got snubbed out of the top 4. I'm going to take a chance with the dog here, mainly because I think they're going to run the ball and limit Sam Darnold's mistakes. The 2 teams who did beat the Buckeyes this season combined for 612 passing yards. I know Sam Darnold is not Baker Mayfield, but he has shown moments of greatness this season. USC has shown us all season they can win games just simply outscoring their opponents and not playing defense. And I think that's what we're going to see in this one.
All right, Kelly. Trojans plus the points for Kelly Stewart. Follow her on Twitter at KellyInVegas. We'll be right back after this short clip. Welcome back to the College Football Bowl Game Breakdown. We bring in Joe Lisi. Find him on Twitter at GoForThe2, one of the best minds in the college football betting world. Joe, welcome in.
This is the best time of the year, Drew. 41 bowl games, and we find out who the 2017 College Football National Championship winner is. It doesn't get better than this.
Yeah, man. Starting off December 30th, we got some good games here, and we'll do one on Monday, January 1st. But start off 257, 258. We got Louisville, Mississippi State. Looks like Louisville laying 7 at 5 dimes, 6 at Heritage. So some opinion on the side here, Joe. Using SBR odds, we got 63.5 the total. You looking to bet this matchup?
Yeah, actually I am, and I really like Louisville in this matchup for a couple of factors. You look at their offense, Drew. They're rushing for around 249 yards on the ground, passing for over 300 yards through the air. We're one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in college football in Lamar Jackson. That's completed 60% of his passes, 3,489 yards, 25 passing touchdowns. And he has rushed for 1,443 yards along with 17 rushing touchdowns on the year. I think his athleticism will be able to put pressure on Mississippi State's defense. But more importantly, a couple of factors when you look at Mississippi State as well. Their starting quarterback, Nick Fitzgerald, got hurt in the Egg Bowl. He will not play in this ball game. He gave way to a freshman quarterback, Keaton Thompson, that did complete 45% of his passes, only 261 yards. But Nick Fitzgerald accounted for about 53% of the total offense of Mississippi State, and their head coach, Dan Mullen, will not coach in this ball game. He became the head coach of Florida. I think when you have the dynamic offense of Louisville putting on the pressure on a freshman quarterback, to me, that's the difference. I think this is a bad matchup for Mississippi State, even though defensively they match up well. They're holding opposing offenses to around 130 rushing yards per game and only 172 passing yards through the air. I think Lamar Jackson forces that Mississippi State offense to match them score for score, and I think the Cardinals dominate this ballgame by 14 points or more.
Joe, next one up here, it's a kind of a tricky handicap, an interesting matchup. Iowa State versus Memphis, 259, 260, the rotation number. We got Big 12 versus AAC. We know Memphis had a tough time with UCF, 2 of their losses, but other than that, had a hell of a season. 66.5 the total, -3.5 Memphis is laying. Do you have a feel on this matchup?
I do. I like the Big 12 team here in Iowa State. I think they overachieved and played very well under Matt Campbell. But a couple of reasons why I like Iowa State in this ballgame. From a front seven perspective, they're holding opposing offenses to 134 rushing yards on the ground. They're +11 in turnover margin and have a blue-collar mentality on the offensive defensive lines. And when you look at their quarterback, Kyle Kemp, and especially at the second half of the season, he was banged up at the end of the year. I think the bowl time off will give him time to heal. He's completed right around 64% of his passes, 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. If he can't go, Zeb Nolan did play at the end of the year as well. He was a redshirt freshman. The extra bowl preparation will benefit this team. Defensively, I think they bring a physicality. You look at Memphis's both losses this year to UCF came on the road or on a neutral field site. So that's a key factor why I like Iowa State. They knocked off Oklahoma on the road as well. So they're a battle-tested team. And when you look at Memphis overall, their weakness is in run support. They're giving up 196 rushing yards to opposing offenses. They do have Riley Ferguson that did throw for 36 touchdown passes this year, 65% completion percentage, and they have 3 big play wide receivers in Miller, Mayhew, and Pollard that did account for 156 receptions, over 2,300 receiving yards, and 23 receiving touchdowns. But I look at Memphis being a finesse type of team, especially in run support. And I look for Montgomery, the Iowa State running back, to have a big day in this ball game. Matt Campbell's a very good head coach, especially with time off and preparation. And I think Iowa State wins this ball game by 10 points or more over the Memphis Tigers.
All right, Joe. So Joe's liking the dog here, catching 3.5, and he even likes them outright by double digits. So, hey, moving on to some heavy hitters here, Joe. We got some big matchups: 261, 262, Washington versus Penn State. So we got Big 10 versus Pac-12 here. Looks like Penn State's laying 2.5, 55 the total. Joe, we got 2 10-win teams here, and Penn State went 8-4 ATS. You factoring that into the handicap?
No, not at all in this matchup. The one thing I look at when I break down bowl games is matchups. I throw a lot of the statistics out of the window and I look at how do teams match up, especially with the extra weeks of preparation. And there are certain factors, X factors, that you have to throw into the mix, especially in this ball game. You look at Penn State, they'll be without their offensive coordinator, Joe Moorhead, that moved on to become the head coach at Mississippi State. So how will that affect the play calling for Saquon Barkley and, more importantly, Trace McSorley in this ballgame? Another critical factor when you look at Penn State overall, this year they were 7-0 at home, but 3-2 on the road or on a neutral field site. And those opponents that they played on the road had a combined overall record of 40-21 or 655 winning percentage. So I think that's a critical matchup. Penn State did not play well on the road this year. And when you look at the games that they lost against Michigan State and Ohio State, those offenses were able to stretch that defense vertically, especially in the passing game. And when you look at Washington in this ball game, they do have a solid quarterback in Jake Browning that completed 68% of his passes, over 2,500 passing yards, 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. And this is a very aggressive Washington defense. Washington, as a defensive unit, did record 38 total sacks. They're holding opposing offenses to 34% on third down conversions. When you look at the weakness of Penn State's offense, it is the offensive line that did allow 28 total sacks in the 2017 season. On the flip side, Washington's only allowed 16 total sacks on the year. Jake Browning's a mobile quarterback. If Washington could force turnovers, they enter this game plus 11 in turnover margin. I think they could put the pressure on Penn State's offense to match them score for score. I don't like the fact that Joe Moorhead has moved on to Mississippi State. Better head coach, in my opinion, is Chris Peterson. And I do feel that Washington has the better quarterback in Jake Browning. Washington in the upset. It'll be close, though, 34-30 over Penn State, but give me those 7 points.
All right, liking the Huskies with the coaching angle in that one. Hey, on to 263, 264, Wisconsin versus Miami. Looks like Wisconsin's laying 6.5. 45 the total. And Joe, actually Wisconsin's laying 6.5 on the road. It is the Orange Bowl. It's going to be a wild atmosphere down there Saturday night for the Orange Bowl in Canes territory. You think the atmosphere is going to get to the Badgers, or you think this number's about right with Wisconsin laying almost a touchdown?
Yeah, I think it's an intriguing contrast in styles. You have a blue-collar team in Wisconsin that's going to look to run the football against a smaller defensive front in Miami that's holding opposing offenses to only around 145 rushing yards on the ground. Miami enters this matchup plus 15 in turnover margin. As we know, the U gets it done. I mean, they create turnovers each and every game. And the way you have to beat Miami, in my opinion, is over the top. But you look at the speed perspective for the Hurricanes, they can run sideline to sideline in terms of stopping the run. And that's what they were able to do against Brandon Wimbush and a bigger offensive line in Notre Dame. And the other factor as well, when you look at Wisconsin, they struggle with speed on the perimeter. That's what JT Barrett and that's what Ohio State was able to do in the Big Ten championship game. Miami has speed, even though some of their playmakers are hurt, like Herndon, who won't play in this matchup. We have to see the health of Amon Richards. But you look at Malik Rozier, he's still a quarterback that could stretch Wisconsin's defense vertically. He's completed 55% of his passes, over 2,400 passing yards, 25 touchdowns. To me, that's the difference, along with the time off in preparation. We saw Mark Richt last year with the extra weeks of preparation time have the Hurricanes ready. They beat a very solid West Virginia team as well. And I'm not sold on this Wisconsin team. I think speed will hurt this defense. I like Miami here. Coupled with the fact that Wisconsin was looking to play in the college football playoff, they now have to go basically to a home game to face the Hurricanes. Not even in a major bowl for the most part. Let's be honest. I mean, this is a step down for Wisconsin for where they were in week number 14. I like Miami in this matchup. I think it's a low-scoring game, though. I think it's a 24-20 matchup. Hurricanes get the home win over the Badgers.
All right, Joe, last game up. Moving on to January 1st. We got 265, 266, South Carolina versus Michigan, 43 the total. We got Michigan laying 7 and the hook. This is the Outback Bowl, so we're staying in the state of Florida, but moving over to Tampa. How you looking to bet the Gamecocks versus the Wolverines, Joe?
Yeah, again, this matchup to me comes down to physicality on the defensive front, and that's where I give the edge to Michigan. Now, a couple of factors about South Carolina. Will Muschamp fired his offensive coordinator, Kurt Roper. There were co-offensive coordinators, Kurt Roper and Brian McClendon. Brian McClendon, the old Georgia running back coach, will take over the duties for this ball game. So I look at the physicality for Michigan on the defensive front as being the difference. They're holding opposing offenses to 125 rushing yards on the ground, only giving up 142 passing yards per game. They do have 39 total sacks as a defensive unit and holding opposing offenses to 27% on third down conversions. When you look at South Carolina as a whole, they're a one-dimensional offense, especially at the end of the year. They could not run the football consistently. They had 5 games last year, Drew, where they failed to rush for over 100 yards. They were 1-4 in those matchups and lost those 4 games by 13.7 points per game. And when you look at the offensive play calling at the end of the year over the last 4 games, South Carolina only averaged 199 passing yards per game. Michigan can pound the rock. They're averaging 186 yards on the ground. I think the offensive line will be able to wear down South Carolina in this matchup. Don't like the quarterback play of Jake Bentley down the stretch. Started fast, but really struggled as the year went on. And physical defensive fronts gave that South Carolina offensive line trouble. You can look at that Clemson matchup. They were beaten up on the interior. To me, that's the difference in this matchup. I think Michigan wins this ball game convincingly. I think it's a blowout, 17 points or more. The extra preparation time for Jim Harbaugh in this ball game will benefit them. I don't care who plays quarterback. It's the running game of Michigan that gets it done. Michigan in a blowout over the Gamecocks.
He's Joe Lisi. Follow him on Twitter at @GoForThe2. We'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back. Going over the last 4 college football bowl games. Guys, if you've liked the content so far of this bowl preview show, please give us a thumbs up, the like button. It will help us out a lot. We got the last 4 games here. We're bringing in Matt Jordan. It's for the heavy hitters here, Matt, starting on January 1st. Welcome in. How you doing today?
I'm good. Ready to roll.
Good stuff, man. We got a good one here in Atlanta, Georgia, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 Pacific kickoff time. We got 267, 268 on the rotation number. UCF versus Auburn. Matt, I'll tell you, it's some movement in the side and total here. It opened up War Eagle -8, 65 the total. It's moved to 67 the total. Now Auburn's laying 9.5. Matt, do you agree with this move, or are you liking UCF side?
Well, I think it makes sense. I mean, it's an SEC team. UCF probably has 5 guys who would, make the top 25 on Auburn. I will say, just cut to the chase, I'm going to take UCF here, but definitely shop around for a few sites had 10 before I signed on here. I think this game's all about motivation. Scott Frost obviously is leading for Nebraska, but he's going to coach this game. His players love him. They're going to want to set him out a winner, complete the best season in school history. The win here over a top 10 team, they could be a top 10 preseason team next year because most of their guys are back except their coach. So maybe they could actually get into the playoff next year if they went undefeated again, but that's for another day. Auburn, what are they going to have left in the tank after playing Georgia and Alabama? They're going to be, even though with the month off, they're going to be beaten up. Their coach doesn't even have much motivation now. He got his contract extension, so I think UCF's going to come out fast. The highest scoring team in the country, and I think motivation will trump talent here, and they'll lose by less than 10. Let's say that.
Yeah, no, and I mean, some points for Auburn is Kerryon Johnson and Cameron Petaway, the 2 backs there that are really talented. They're banged up, but the extra preparation time, they may get back in the game. But I kind of agree with you here because Auburn, yeah, of course, 10 wins. They got up to number 2 in the nation, playoff hopes. But what is their motivation going to be? And not to mention, they did have the 10 wins, but depending on what number you bottom at during the season, during each week, they could have been as bad as 5 and 8 against the number. So not necessarily making money in the betting markets, although having a great season overall. Hey, Matt, on to the Citrus Bowl. We got 269, 270, LSU versus Notre Dame. Looks like the Bayou Bengals here, the Tigers, laying -3, the total of 51.5. This one in Orlando. You looking to bet LSU Notre Dame, Matt?
This is one game I'd be careful. It seems like 2 teams with a lot of pro prospects that they haven't yet, but might say, hey, I'm going to sit out. I'm going to prepare for the NFL. Of course, Leonard Fournette did it last year. LSU's best running back, Darius Geis, he's almost surely going pro. He's been beaten up all year. I wouldn't shock me if in the next week or 2 he says, I'm not going to play in the bowl game. Tigers defensive end, Arden Key, a top 5 potential draft pick. He's been banged up a lot this year. Wouldn't shock me if he sat out the bowl game. I do like LSU, all that said, if they all play, because Notre Dame's kind of fallen apart at the end. Blown out at Miami, blown out at Stanford. Barely beat Navy, neutral site. They've only covered one of their past 5 bowl games. LSU's been rolling. Their only loss in their past 7 was to Alabama, and that was a pretty close game. They've covered their past 6, so I think I'd like LSU here.
All right, Matt, like an LSU. Hey, on to the playoffs. The big heavy hitters here. Number 3, Georgia Bulldogs versus number 2, Oklahoma Sooners. Got to shop around for this one using SBR odds. Looks like we got Georgia -1.5 at 5 dimes, -2 at Bet Online, a total of 60. 2 12-1 teams. Georgia went 9-4 against the number. Oklahoma 8-5 ATS. Matt, how you looking to bet the first playoff game?
I like Georgia. I'm not a big fan of the Big 12, I'll admit. Yes, Oklahoma won at Ohio State early in the year. I think if they played again, it'd be very different. I just don't know how these teams had never met before. That's pretty unusual. 2 big-time programs. Total polar opposites, obviously. It's whoever dictates, tempo is going to win. Georgia controls the ball for 35 minutes with their running game. Nick Chubb, Sony Michel. They'd rather Jake Fromm not pass, frankly. They're going to try to grind it out, eat clock, keep Baker Mayfield off the field. But if OU gets a bunch of 3-and-outs, gets him on the field, they'd probably win. My one concern of this one is the Sooners running back Rodney Anderson. There's that rape thing hanging over him. I don't know. Right now he's still going to play, but that could be a distraction, or who knows. Or I believe there's another hearing in December 18th. Who knows if he gets suspended? That'd be a huge, huge loss. They lost their leading rusher. But as things stand, I do like Georgia. I mean, OU's only covered 2. It's past 9 in neutral site, so I go with the Dogs.
Yeah, it's a competitively priced game with it under 3. And I'll tell you, Oklahoma, one of the best offenses, if not the best, likely the best player in all of college football at the quarterback position. But going up against this Georgia defensive front, it's kind of something they haven't seen all year. So that matchup right there, will they be able to neutralize what Baker Mayfield can do offensively? Likely will have the biggest impact on the outcome of this game. But on to another playoff game that is competitively priced as well. We got Alabama versus Clemson, the third go-around, with 2016 Alabama winning 45-40, 2017 Clemson winning 35-30, Alabama laying 2.5 pretty much across the board, 47 the total. You think there will be this many points in this matchup, Matt? And what way are you looking to bet it sidewise?
Well, of course, Bama's favorite. They've only been an underdog once this decade. That was 2005 at Georgia, and they won that handily. I'm sure Clemson, if they had a choice, would drop down into the 2nd or 3rd seed to avoid Alabama. They're probably like, what do we have to do to get rid of this team? Best number 4 seed, I think, in playoff history, no question. The 2 past number 4s have lost pretty handily, but then the first number 4, Ohio State, won it all. I just hope this trilogy is better than most movie trilogies. I can't think of a good movie trilogy. The last movie trilogy that was good, but I mean, the 2 things here that I think are a lot different. The first, obviously, no Deshaun Watson. He was Clemson's offense the first 2 games, amazing performances. And number 2, a lot of people I don't think are talking about is those were quick turnaround games. A week, 10 days in between them when they played last. This time they each have a month to prepare. And you hate to go against Nick Saban when you have that much time to prepare. Look at what he's done in season openers against Florida State, USC. They almost always win their bowl games, when it's their first bowl game. They have to play back-to-back. So I just have a hard – I know Clemson's covered 7 bowls in a row, and Dabo Swinney basically is Nick Saban Jr. Might replace him at Alabama someday, but I really don't want to see an all-SEC championship game, but unfortunately I think that's what we're going to be looking at. So I'd take the Tide here.
He's Matt Jordan, a writer here at SBR Picks. Matt, thanks for your time. Good breakdown of those bowl games. Hey, guys, this was a kind of a one-off, unique video of the bowl games. A lot went into this, 8 different handicappers. Thank you, handicappers, for your time. Also want to give a special thanks to the editing and video team at SBR. We're looking to do more of these videos. What would help us out is if you could give us a thumbs up, the like sign, the like button there. Also, if you could share it on Facebook, tell your friends, and write any comments you want here at the bottom of the YouTube page. If you liked it, please let us know. If not, let us know what we can improve on. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. Best of luck betting bowl season for SBR. I'm Drew Martin. Thanks for tuning in.
Hello, SBR YouTube followers. I am JoJo, and before you go, I want to let you know about our new college football contest. As we all know, bowl season is right around the corner. And to add to that excitement, we are announcing our 15K College Bowl Handicapping Showdown. We are going to be awarding amazing prizes, and members from all over the world can join in on the fun. Join our forum, follow us on social media, and remember to share and like this video. I've been your host, Jojo, and until next time, thanks for watching.